let's see here. Make sure that it's working properly. All right. Switch this to this. All right. I think it's working. Yes. Okay, cool. Get the stories out. To that. And that. In it. All right. We can remove that. Don't need that anymore. And this. And we just need the clickety clack. Probably should move that. Start. What's going on, Angel, Tom, Gabriel, A-Link? Howdy doody. What's going on, everybody? I was about to start recording the stories for tomorrow and Thursday, and figured, you know what, why the hell not? Let's do a live, can't talk, a live, and see what everybody's doing, even though it's early. It's early. First live I've made it to. Salt and Light, thank you for coming. Brown, what's going on? Derek, ever feel like somebody listening to everything you say? You know, you're onto something there, Derek. Per usual, you're spot on. It's crazy how that works. All right. I got some law enforcement stories for you. I think this is going to be, well, I don't know. Anytime I drop an episode like on a holiday, the holiday, it never does well. So I probably will drop this one either tonight. No, probably not tonight. Probably Wednesday, maybe. Wednesday or Friday. I'm not really sure which day would be better because, again, whenever you drop an episode on a holiday specifically, whether it be Christmas, July, or at least all the holidays that we celebrate over here in the States, it never does well because everybody's, probably doing shit. Most people, not everybody, but, but this, I think the plan may be Friday. I don't know. I'm going to be out of town. I'm leaving Wednesday to go out of town. So got to get this shit done. One nice surprise. Pop in, say hi when I saw you were live. Friday will be pretty good. Yes. Thanksgiving stories, which is whenever I get those from Zach, which it should be today, I will be recording them either tonight or tomorrow. It depends on whenever I get them, and then that episode will be Tuesday for sure, tomorrow, and then this one, law enforcement stories, will probably be Friday, just because, I don't know, just to space them out a little bit. All right. Let me get these stories pulled up, and I'll start so I can get this shit done, so I can get everything else I need to get done today after this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never joined in on live, which I don't do it that often, but when I do, if you hear this, it's my little clicker that I use to help me edit faster. So if that annoys you, I apologize, but it is what it is. Been binging you a lot lately. Been killing a big. Appreciate it, Tom. Means a lot. I need it Thanksgiving to get me away from the relative. yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I don't know. I love the food, but I don't hate it, but it's awkward. A lot of the times on Thanksgiving, with at least on my side, it's awkward, and you see people you haven't talked to in at least a year, sometimes more, and then all of a sudden you're in this room together trying to make small talk, and I am not good at small talk at all. I get awkward, I get quiet. Once you get those pleasantries out of the way real early, be like, hey, yeah, it's been a while. Hope you're doing good. How's everything going? Oh, you're still working there? Oh, man, how's the kids? Oh, nice, man. and then the conversation just dies immediately, and it feels forced, it feels awkward. You know, I hate it. Ugh. All right. Let's get this story going because it's already 10:30 here, and I only got so much time before the kids get back from school. All right. And let's get this going right here. My volume and everything sound good? Does it need to be up or down? I guess I should probably ask that before I do this one. I think I got it up pretty good, but I can bring it up a little bit more if need be. Nailed it like the room. Yeah. It's awkward, dude. All right. Let's get this going then. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Alex Pereira for the triple champ. Oh man, don't get me started on that. I really hope he does. I really hope that Dana makes it happen and he allows that to happen because I like John Jones. I think he's good at what he does, but it also feels like he's ducking Tom right now, and it also feels like, I don't know, he's good, but he just whipped fucking a retired fighter. He just beat a retired fighter up. Like, come on, man. Like, I really hope he better be fighting Tom next, and then if he does fight Tom, then they need to bring Pereira up there and allow him to fight at heavyweight too, because if he does, he will literally be the GOAT for sure. All right. I got to restart this. All right. Ready? Story number 1. Sorry. Get me talking about UFC and I get very sidetracked very easily. I never thought I'd end up as a cop. In high school, I was just some aimless kid in a nowhere town, picking up odd jobs and drifting without so much of a plan. College really wasn't for me, and most jobs felt like I was wearing shit. College really wasn't for me, and most of the jobs that I was at felt like I was wearing shoes a size too small, awkward and uncomfortable. But when I stumbled into police work, something just clicked. It wasn't the uniform or even the authority, it was the rhythm of it. The chaos now felt manageable, almost therapeutic, as if I could bring some kind of new order to the randomness. The chaos felt manageable now, almost therapeutic, as if I could bring some kind of order to the randomness of the world. It became my thing, fixing messes, stepping into the fray when others backed away. But nothing, not the sleepless nights, not the brawls, not the quiet loneliness of the job, could have even prepared me for that call on a cold night in December of 2012. To this day, some of the craziest stuff to ever go down in this town. To this day, it was some of the craziest things to ever go down in this town. It put a different flavor on the job, something I wasn't sure if I even had a taste for anymore. What I'd seen as chaos was actually blind, malevolent. Whoa, hold on. Let me restart that shit. That was 2012. Oh, imagine if he had 2 of them in the UFC. Holy shit. No, I did not know he had a brother. Does he fight at all? John Jones to fight Mike Tyson next. Oh my, I hate admitting that I even attempted to watch the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. And that was the first one I've ever watched of anything that Jake Paul's ever put on, just because I already have a subscription to Netflix. So I'm like, the world is watching, fuck it, I will too. And yeah, it was garbage per usual. So, which isn't really shocking. All right. Let me fix this really quickly and get back to 12. To this day, it was some of the crazy. It put a different flavor on the taste for anymore. Okay, here we go. What I'd seen as chaos was actually blind, malevolent violence. I count myself very lucky for walking away that night. It was nearing the end of my shift. I was counting down the minutes. The holidays were around the corner, and for the first time in years, I had a few days off lined up. My sister was flying in from Chicago. I planned to just soak in the warmth of family, good friends, and the blessed quiet that came with turning off my radio for a little while. My partner Dan was equally eager to clock out. Dan was the kind of guy who will tell you everything you don't want to know about his life, within 5 minutes of meeting him too. But he had your back when it mattered. We were sipping some bad gas station coffee inside the cruiser, parked outside a closed diner, when the radio squawked. Unit 12, we got a 647. Okay, yeah. Right outside the diner. Unit 12, we got a 647 at 348 Marlowe Avenue. Possible assault. Caller states the suspect is intoxicated and threatening employees. Respond code 2. Dan groaned, tossed his empty cup onto the floorboard. Just our luck, he muttered. Dan was an oversharer, but was also a Debbie Downer. The dude wore a lot of hats. He always had something else to do, so when it came close to clocking out, he didn't like taking calls, especially ones that might require 3 hours of bullshit before clocking out. Especially ones that might require 3 hours of bullshit paperwork before clocking out. I didn't even respond, just flipped on the lights and started heading towards the direct. My God, I'm really having trouble fucking talking today. I didn't even respond, just flipped on the headlights and started heading towards the address. Marlowe Avenue was part of the town's small business district. Chiropractors, insurance offices, and that one store that sells custom birdhouses. Super random. Most of the shops were dark at this hour, their windows frosted over with that cheap spray snow and holiday decals. But as we turned onto that street, one building stood out. Lights blazed from its windows, spilling out into the parking lot, where a crowd of about... Lights blazed on from its windows, spilling onto the parking lot, where a crowd of about 15 people had now gathered. A cacophony of shouts and hollers greeted us as we pulled inside. Looks like a party got out of hand, Dan said as he stepped out, adjusting his belt. I wouldn't have bet against him. It looked like a mattress store, or a bed store of some kind. Everybody was dressed nice, huddled under some kind of whatever. Everybody was dressed nice, huddled around some kind of whatever. We could hear somebody wrestling around just out of sight, though. The air was sharp and biting, carrying the smells of beer and cigarettes. I scanned the scene, clocked the details. Most of the group was gathered inside clumps, some holding red plastic cups and others huddled inside their jackets. A man with a Santa hat, crooked on sideways on his head, was shouting something incoherent. Oh my God. A man wearing a Santa hat on sideways on his head. Oh my God. A man wearing a Santa hat sideways on his head was shouting something incoherent. His words were slurring. As we approached, a woman broke away from the group and immediately rushed toward us. Oh, thank God you're here, she exclaimed. Her face was red from the cold, or maybe the alcohol. It's Frank. He's lost his damn mind. He attacked Mr. Callahan, and now he's threatening to kill everybody else. Where is he now? I asked her. She pointed towards the crowd. Somewhere in there. You'll know him. He's shirtless and screaming about how he's going to burn it all down. Dan exchanged a look with me. Shirtless in December? Great. And he's over there? Dan asked her. You can't miss him, the lady directed us. We waded into the sea of chaos, pushing through the bodies and dodging sloshing drinks. It was weird that everybody didn't disperse. It told us we weren't doing anything wrong. Near the center of the crowd, two men were tangled on the ground, wrestling like drunks in a bar fight. One of them, sure enough, was shirtless. There was a solid wall of music and rage, and his face was contorted with drunken fury. The other, who was older and was wearing a torn suit, was gasping and trying to fend off the blows. "Police! Break it up!" I shouted, grabbing the shirtless man by the arm. It was like grabbing a live wire. He immediately swung at me, his fist narrowly missing my jaw, and let out this drunken roar. Dan moved in, tackling the guy with surprising speed for somebody who complained about his knees pretty much daily. Together we wrestled him to the ground, pinned his arms behind his back, and snapped on some cuffs. The man let out this string of curses, spit flying as he thrashed against the pavement. "Get off me! He deserved it, they all do!" he screamed. "Fuck these people, fuck this store. They owe me money. They owe me for years of my life." The older man, presumably Mr. Callahan, now stumbled to his feet, brushing gravel from his suit. "I'm fine," he said, though his lip was split and bleeding. "Don't press charges, just get him out of here. He's fired as of tonight." "Yeah, well, he's already got a new job," Dan said. "Full-time guest at the county jail." Zing. Dan 1 and the drunk idiot 0. To this day, he's the only partner I've ever had to have the balls to make jokes, bad jokes at that, and openly talk shit to people that he was arresting. As we started taking statements, the situation seemed to stabilize. People calmed down, the adrenaline in the air thinned out like smoke. But then, out of nowhere, a wiry man in a Christmas sweater approached us, his eyes darting around nervously. I could tell something was up immediately. What would it be? Another fight? Did Boss Man end up wanting to press charges now after all? I guess that really wasn't uncommon in our line of work. Officers," he said. "I think you guys got the wrong guy." Dan turned to him, frowning. "What are you talking about? We saw him." "Yeah, man, they were locked up, literally fighting when we got here." I cut Dan off before he could put a foot in his mouth. No, the man interrupted now, shaking his head. "That was Gary. He jumped in after it started. The guy who started this all, the one who attacked Mr. Callahan first. He's gone. No one's seen him since it started." A chill prickled at the back of my neck. I glanced at Dan, who was already reaching for his radio, but before he could say a word, a loud crack split the air. The sound of gunfire is unmistakable. It's sharp, deafening, and makes your heart skip a beat immediately. Hell, it'll take your breath away if you don't know what's coming. A second later, the front window of the office exploded, showering the sidewalk with glass. Screams erupted as the crowd scattered like startled birds, diving behind cars and into the bushes, all of them dropping their drinks and cigarettes. My hand went to my holster instinctively, drawing my weapon as I scanned the parking lot. "Over there!" Dan shouted, his pistol trained across the parking lot. At the edge of the lot, silhouetted against the flickering light of a dying street lamp, was a man. He was swaying, a pistol clutched in one hand. But even from this distance, I could see the wild, glassy look in his eyes. His shirt was smeared with something dark. Either it be blood or booze. I couldn't really tell. He stumbled out of the darkness and into the faint light of the parking lot. His steps were unmistakable. This guy was hammered. Dan and I spread out, moving low and slow. "Drop the weapon!" I yelled out, sounding like a little boy. I hated barking commands. I really didn't have the chest for it. The man did not respond. Instead, he staggered forward, raised the gun, and waved it in this lazy arc. His movements were erratic, like a puppet with tangled strings. For some reason, I got the feeling he wasn't going to pull the trigger again. Dan moved to the left and tried to get this clear angle on him. "Hey, drop it, now!" he barked. Of course, still nothing. My heart was pounding, palms slick with sweat, despite the freezing air around me. I rounded the hood of a parked car and creeped closer. The man was muttering to himself now, his words slurred and disjointed. Again, he was obviously drunk, so all of this was going to start make sense. Again, he was obviously drunk, so all of this was starting to make sense. This guy, the guy with no shirt, they were low-level grunts for this company, probably mattress delivery guys or something. They got paid the least, and when they saw everybody else getting a bonus check or something of the like, they decided to beat up the CEO. This guy was so drunk, he thought he'd give him a This guy was so drunk, he thought he'd give him a parking lot execution. He kept muttering, kill him all. They'll see, they'll all see. I was close enough to see his face now, pale and streaked with sweat and dirt. His eyes flicked toward me, and for a moment, I thought he might actually comply. But then he raised the gun and pointed it, not at me, but towards the office building again. I didn't think. I moved, lunged forward, and tackled him to the ground, my shoulder driving into his ribs. The gun clattered across the asphalt as he let out a big grunt, the sound of somebody getting their wind knocked out of them. I'd later learn I'd broken his floating rib too. Dan was on us a second later, helping me wrestle the man's arms behind his back. We secured him with cuffs and then dragged him to his feet, all the while panting. This was the best case scenario, and I felt humbled and grateful all in the same moment. It was starting to dawn on me that the bullet could have hit me, or at least could have dumped that whole mag on us. We were lucky to be standing, breathing, alive. That parking lot was eerily quiet now, the crowd watching from a safe distance. Somebody started clapping, but it died quickly when they realized how inappropriate it was. Dan was all for it, nodding along like some kind of hero, but I waved it off with a stiff shake of my head. Not the time, nor the place. Is this the guy? I asked, glancing at the bystanders. There's not some kind of third guy running around, is there? A dozen heads nodded in unison. That's him, the man in the Christmas sweater confirmed. He's the one who started it all. I really wish you would have disclosed that to us earlier, sir. I all but yelled in his face. We loaded him and Gary into separate cruisers, then headed back to the station. Backup arrived just as the situation was finally handled. That night dragged on as we filed the reports, filled out the paperwork, and tried to piece together what had really happened. The shooter, Frank, refused to say much, his drunken ramblings veering between nonsensical threats and tearful apologies. It was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. All kinds of weird confessions. I digress. By the time I finally got home, the sun was starting to rise, casting a pale gray light overneath the town. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my hands, which were still trembling slightly. All I wanted was a quiet night to ease into the holidays. Instead, I got a front row seat to chaos. And a reminder that this job is never as simple as it seems. I literally almost took a bullet to the chest cavity. I can't shake the feeling that something about that night was just off. Maybe it was the way Frank muttered about burning it all down, or the eerie silence after those gunshots. Or maybe it was the fact that despite the crowd, the lights, and the chaos, no one saw where Frank had gone during those crucial minutes, or what he'd even been doing. Getting a glove box, which was getting a gun from the glove box of a Chevy S10. All I know is this. As I drifted into a restless sleep, the sound of breaking glass echoed in my mind, and I dreamt of shadows moving in the cold December night. God damn, I hate the dark of winter. I really do. Okay. Click, click, click. Did you just find out a little slow beat up? Yeah, I'm not having a good mental day. I'm sorry to hear that, Cupcake. I hope it gets better. But for now, yeah, just hopefully Derek can help you out in the chat. He's usually pretty good about lifting spirits. Roman, what's going on? What's up, Zach? How you doing, bro? How you doing, buddy? I don't know if you're still in the chat or not. Mm, I don't. I don't think I've ever been to a holiday party either. I've been to bars when they're having like Christmas parties and things like that, but I've never been to an actual Christmas party or anything like that. Granted, I was in the army for 4 years, so we didn't really do anything like that um, in the army. Uh, Most of the time, I ended up either staying or maybe come back home for those types of things when Christmas would come around. Or and then I was a mailman for almost 10 years, and I fucking hated most of my coworkers. So there's no way I was going to spend any time with any of them outside of work. So I could barely even do it while at work, let alone spending any time with them outside of work in my free time. So yeah, and I'm just that's not some people like that. That's not really my thing, man. When I have free time, especially from with away from coworkers. Thankfully, I'm in the position that I'm in now where I don't have to deal with people like I used to because I definitely don't have the patience for it anymore. Fun fact, all Chevy S10. Oh man, that's so true. I used my very first vehicle I ever had was a Chevy S10, a red 2000 Chevy S10 Extreme, and it definitely came with a 357 mag revolver standard inside the glove box. That's good. Just so glad you went live. I'm currently on vacation. Missed Let's Read live. Yeah, he's really consistent about that stuff. I'd like to get to that point too, but sometimes I just don't have the time to, unfortunately do the lives. There's days where I have time to do it and there's other days where I don't. Like I usually so at least on a normal basis, I try, which works out most of the time, is dropping episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I try to record those on Monday and Wednesday because I think sometimes, depending on the episode, it'll take 8+ hours per episode. Normally is usually what it takes, at least for me. Sometimes that can be a lot less. And then trying to juggle that with going to the gym, doing everything at home, doing everything with my kids. Like it's really, really difficult to try to do all that stuff. So, but all of that long-winded statement to say that Joel at Let's Read is he's really consistent with that, and I like how in tune he is with his community and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I've gone all in on full-time writing. Yeah, hell yeah. That's awesome. I think I can't recommend it enough to people to find ways and avenues to just work for yourself, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still have bad days, still have rough days, and I almost miss and or needed, especially in the beginning, to have like a boss over your shoulder. You know, as much as I hated that, as much as I hated having somebody above me with these expectations and breathing down your neck and stuff like that, I almost needed it until now where I can get into a routine, because working from home and doing this from home for a living is cool and awesome, and I'm thankful and very blessed that I get to do it. But at the same time, like I I am like super bad about procrastinating and waiting to the last minute to do shit. So I could literally, I have anything at home. I can get distracted very easily. So it's hard to like, all right, no, you're not doing that. Go sit down, get this shit done. Like that type of thing. As I know that's hard to explain to people that work regular 9 to 5s, but that's what I used to do as well. So I know, I get it. But anytime you have the opportunity to work for yourself, or like work from home and things like that, man, I never thought I would enjoy it as much as I do, but I definitely do. Especially I do not miss working 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day out in the elements, in the cold, in the hot, everything. I do not miss that shit at all. Chilling at work, listening while counting down the hours. Nice. Nice. I'm expecting my first child. Any advice? Um, Trust me, when I had my first kid, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. There's not, in my opinion, there's no videos, there's no books, any of that shit that you can read that's really gonna honestly prepare you for it. You just have to like figure it out in the moment. And I genuinely believe that not everybody, because there's piece of shit parents out there and people that should not have kids. And I understand that kids aren't for everybody too, you know. But for me personally, this is really all I can speak to on it is there's a switch inside of you that when you hold your baby for the first time, it just turns on, and you learn as you go. If you put your kid first in every decision you ever make, I genuinely believe you'll never make a wrong decision. And that's how I live my life. That's how I've, raised my kids as a father, and I'm not perfect by any means, but yeah, that's just what I do. I mean, last month I've not written in 9 days, but at the same time, June of 2023, I've written and published 3 novels, so I really don't feel bad. That's awesome, dude. That's a big deal. That's a lot of work, and then I know it's not easy to do, because I hear just vicariously, through Zach. Zach's constantly writing novels and stuff as well. Maybe not constantly, but doing this for me on the side as a side project, and I hope he can get to the point one day where he can just write for a living, because he's definitely good enough to do so. Trust your instincts. 1,000 years of genetics will guide you. Yes, absolutely. I'm working at Walmart right now, standing electronics. Hell yeah, brother. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's electronics. All right. You want to do story number 2 before I get carried away? Oh, boy. All right. Let me turn this off real quick. All right. Story number 2. Back in my early days as a cop, I lived a double life. By day, I was Officer Macho, writing up traffic citations, breaking up the occasional bar fight, and trying to make the city a little less chaotic. But by night, on my nights off, I was a different animal, a bachelor with a taste for the wild side. I spent my weekends downtown, losing myself in the throb of bass-heavy... club music and overpriced drinks. It wasn't about meeting people, not really. It was about the energy, the escape. It felt good to be on the other side of a badge for a few hours, brushing shoulders with people I'd never see again, not asking questions and not making any judgments. I craved the noise, the lights, the anonymity. I can't fucking say that word. I craved the noise, the lights, and the anonymity of it all. That was until one night, when I learned the hard way that the badge follows you, well, everywhere, even when you're off duty. Coldest, realest night of my career, and I wasn't even on the clock. That's how you know it's bad. It started like any other Friday night. I clocked out, showered, and threw on my civvies. Just a leather jacket and jeans. Nothing that screamed cop. This time, I decided to venture a little further from my usual haunts. I'd heard about some spots on the south side, places with a reputation for being a little grittier, a little edgier. The kind of bars where music was louder, the crowds a little rougher, and the drinks didn't come with these tiny umbrellas. It sounded perfect to me. I wanted a night out that I might not remember. Fast drinks, fast girls, and fast energy. Copping feels on the floor, grinding by the bar, slamming in the bathroom. I wanted something crazy and totally my own experience. By midnight, I was 3 drinks in and thoroughly enjoying the change of scenery. The club that I was in was packed wall to wall with bodies moving into this relentless beats. The air was thick with sweat and vape clouds. This club was too young, too new agey, so I paid my tab and moved on to the next door. This club was too young and too new agey, so I paid my tab and moved on next door. A slightly more upscale bar with a live DJ and a smaller dance floor. I started pumping drinks at this spot, leaving no room to breathe. Whiskey, gin, a beer in between just to stay afloat. I started eyeballing some women, getting some eyeballs back, before I realized how hard I was buzzing and starting to see double. I start to lose the aura, lose my momentum, and honestly, started catching looks from other dudes. I couldn't tell if they were checking in on me or wanting to make me wink. The energy was starting to wear thin, though. I was pissed drunk and my stomach was growling loud enough to compete with the DJ. So I decided to take a break. Maybe find a late night food truck or a diner to soak up some of this liquor sloshing around in my gut. For whatever reason, all these Southside bars and clubs didn't serve. For whatever reason it was, all these Southside bars and clubs did not serve food of any kind. And I found that really weird. It told me that this was something of a drug-using neighborhood, if the locals didn't eat. Economics don't lie. I stumbled out into the cold night, the air shocking against my flushed skin. The streets were quiet and eerily. The streets were quiet, eerily so, with only the occasional car passing by. I wandered around for a bit, the glow of neon signs guiding me around. Most of the bars and clubs on this side of town did not serve food, just endless streams of alcohol. But that's when I spotted it, a tiny taco shop tucked between 2 graffiti-tagged buildings, its fluorescent open 24-hour sign buzzing faintly in the darkness. Perfect. Probably one of the best Mexican joints in the entire district. As I got closer, I noticed something was off, though. The windows were smeared with condensation, but through the foggy glass, I could see a small group of people inside, and they were not eating. They were standing perfectly still, their hands raised in the air. 2 figures in ski masks. 2 figures wearing ski masks moved along them. 2 figures in ski masks moved among them, one waving a gun, the other brandishing a knife. A robbery. For a moment, I just stood there staring. My brain was now working overtime, trying to process the situation through the haze of the alcohol. I wasn't in uniform. I didn't have my gun or my cuffs. I was just some guy in a leather jacket who wandered into the wrong place at the wrong time. But my instincts kicked in, and before my common sense could stop me, I was a cop with a certain sense of duty, and that blinded me to the reality of what I was really walking into. I shoved the door open, the bell above me jingling loudly. The robbers froze, their heads snapping toward me. "Hey!" I shouted. "The hell's going on in here? Drop your weapons!" I reached for my belt, for my gun and cuffs, and no dice. Then it started to click in the moment, after already entering. I was about to get my ass handed to me, like the guys you read about in the newspaper. The heroes that get wasted in traffic altercations and backroom antics. That was my future. The guy with the gun immediately raised it and aimed it straight at me. My stomach dropped. "Get out!" he shouted, his voice high and shaky. "This ain't your business, man." The one with the knife started toward me now, the blade catching that harsh fluorescent light. I took an instinctive step back, the reality of my situation hitting me like a freight train. I was not armed, and I was not invincible. I was just a drunken idiot about to get himself killed. Whoops was an understatement, but I remember saying it out loud, and both guys nodding, almost laughing at me. Okay, I said, raising my hands and backing up out of the doorway. "I'm leaving, all right? Just don't do anything stupid." The door swung shut behind me, and I planted my foot against it, jamming it closed. My hands were trembling as I fumbled for my phone. I dialed 911, my words falling out of my mouth in this rush whisper as I explained the situation to the dispatcher. I wasn't going anywhere, because even in my drunken stupor, something had been painfully obvious to me. That gun was fake as shit. I could see the rubber just down the barrel, some kind of prop gun. I had zero fear of him shooting me through the glass, just had to be aware of the knife. When I glanced back inside, the guy with the knife was actually staring at me, while his homie worked the robbery and bagged the money. "They're inside," I said, glancing through the window. Now the robbers were yelling at the cashier, waving their weapons. One's got a gun and the other's got a knife. I blocked the door, but I think they're looking for another way out. I rattled off the cross streets and the nearby businesses. The dispatchers seemed to know the area that I was describing pretty well. I also mentioned that I was an off-duty officer. I was doing my best to prevent the escape at the moment. "Units are en route," the dispatcher assured me. "Stay where you are and do not engage." "Yeah, sure," I muttered, shoving the phone back in my pocket. My heart was pounding so loud that it felt like it might burst. Through the glass, I saw the other two men dart towards the back of the shop, disappearing into the kitchen. Without thinking, I moved my foot away from the front door and pulled it open, slipping inside as quietly as I could. The place smelled like grease and desperation. The air was hot and heavy. I crept through that narrow aisle between the counter and the tables, every nerve in my body screaming at me to turn and leave. The employees let me through, holding themselves together and trying to just stay out of the way. Inside the kitchen, the robbers were trying to pry open the back door. Their voices were frantic. I moved closer, my footsteps muffled by that sticky tiled floor. One of them, the guy with the knife, was closest to me. He was smaller, wiry. His movements were jittery, almost like a trapped animal. And without thinking, I lunged. I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him into the walk-in cooler. The impact was brutal. The sound of his head hitting the metal reverberated through the small space. He immediately went limp and crumpled to the floor in a heap. The other robber turned, his eyes wide with panic. He didn't hesitate. He charged me, the knife flashing as he drove it into my thigh. That was my mistake. I should have assumed they were both armed. He buried it to the handle, and I slumped backwards on top of the guy that I just knocked out. Hold on. My voice started getting... Bleh. All right, let's go back. One of them. They were both armed. There it is. I'm working in... Oh, wait. Harry from Darren, Susan, off-grid salesman. I'm from Darren and Susan, off-grid. Hey, how's it going, Darren and Susan? There's nothing like eating a moist taco. Dude, those taco joints like this one in the story will 100% have the best tacos you'll ever eat. When I'm drunk, I'm invincible. Hey, how's it going? Is it Absinthe Minded? I like that name. That's cool. I don't think I've ever tried absinthe. Is it good? Have you actually, is that where the name derives? I'm assuming that's where the name derives from, right? You like? All right. He buried it. That's where I'm at. He buried it to the handle, and I slumped backward on top of the guy that I just knocked out. The pain was immediate and blinding, a hot, searing bolt that shot up my leg and into my spine. I screamed, collapsing onto the floor as blood immediately poured out from the wound. The robber bolted out the back door, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. His footsteps echoing down the alley. It was a simple topside lock that they were missing. And that it was a simple topside lock they were missing that was keeping them from leaving. But after he flipped it open, he was gone like a phantom. I pressed my hands to the wound, trying to stem the bleeding. My vision was now swimming. The room now tilted and spun. Those lights above me, buzzing like angry wasps. Somewhere in the distance, I heard some sirens. The call went through. The dispatcher did their thing, and help was indeed en route. I hoped to Christ medical would get there fast, because my leg was blowing up. "Help!" I croaked out, my voice barely even above a whisper. "Back alley. He went out the back alley." The door burst open, and suddenly there were people everywhere. EMTs swarmed me, their hands cool and efficient as they worked to stop their EMTs swarmed me, their hands cool and efficient as they worked to stop the bleeding. One of the officers on scene ducked out the back and chased after that fleeing robber. Another cuffed the unconscious guy in the kitchen, dragging him to his feet. He stirred a little bit. One side of his face was pretty swollen from that impact. It's what you get when you play stupid games. You win stupid prizes. As they loaded me onto a stretcher, I heard shouting from the alley. A few minutes later, the officer returned, his face flushed and triumphant. He had that second guy in tow, the kid's head hanging low as he shuffled toward the kid's head hanging. Oh my God, I can't talk. The kid's head hanging low. Why can't I say that? He had that the kid's head hanging low as he shuffled forward in handcuffs. And that's when it hit me. They were both just kids. 15, maybe 16 at the most. The one in the kitchen was crying, his nose bleeding from where I slammed him into the door. The other one, the one who stabbed me, wouldn't even look at anybody. His jaw was set and his face was pale. I thought about my gun, locked away at home. If I'd had it with me tonight, I wouldn't have hesitated. If I would have had it with me tonight, I would not have hesitated. I would have drawn it, and I would have fired, and I would have killed that kid. As they loaded me into the ambulance, oh my God. As they loaded me up into the ambulance, the pain in my leg was nothing compared to the sick, twisting guilt in my gut. The badge may follow you everywhere, but sometimes it's better to leave the gun behind. Oof. Oof, oof, oof. KK, what's going on? Which head hang? Oh, I think they both were hanging at that moment. One was probably centered and the other one was hanging to the left or the right. Is that the red or the white? All right, I only got one more story for you. If I had the other stories, I would have recorded those now, but whenever Zach gets them to me, I'll probably do another live stream tomorrow or tonight, most likely tomorrow. But still got one more left, so what time is it? All right, cool. Also, no obligation, but everything in all the merch in my shop right now is 25% off. If you head over to my site, which is just boozeandbooze.net, put in the code at checkout, booze25, all in caps, and it takes 25% off. So if you're interested, again, no obligation. Just wanted to put that out there. All right. Last one. I need to drink this before it melts. Yep. Awesome. Liked it. right. Last story, shall we? Okay, 15, 20. All right. Whoa. What you doing, mate? What you doing? That's not right. All right. Story number 3. For a long stretch of my early career, I was a DPS officer assigned to a sleepy suburb where nothing much really ever happened. It was a quiet post, the kind of assignment that sounds good on paper but dulls you with its routine. Lots of traffic stops, seatbelt citations, and the occasional DUI. I'd tell myself it was just a rung on the ladder, a stepping stone to something bigger, but most nights I'd wonder if this really was it. The safe hours and predictable calls made it easy to get comfortable. And for that, I got too comfortable. Until one night when I learned how fast the ordinary can unravel into the inexplicable. Until one night when I learned how fast the ordinary can unravel into the inexplicable. Everybody that works in law enforcement has at least one story, one crazy thing that happened to them, whether it be a PTSD shootout or some kind of paranormal experience, or some uncanny run-in on the road. We all have one, at least. Mine creeped me out for a whole year after it happened, and it had me constantly scratching at my head. I've told this story to therapists. I've tried to pick it apart, dissect it, find some rational explanation that'll let me box it up and just put it away, but I can't. Ugh. Burping. Hold on. I can't. Okay. That night clings to me like a smoke, murky and impossible to shake. A reminder that some things just don't always add up. It started as I was just coming on shift, the streets settling into their usual rhythm for a weekday night. Quiet, save for the occasional hum of tires on asphalt. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio, pulling me out of my thoughts. Disturbance reported at Hawthorne Juvenile Facility. Medical requested. Officers on scene to investigate. Hawthorne. Even the name made my stomach tighten. It wasn't the first time I'd been called out there, and it definitely wouldn't be the last. The place had its reputation, not for anything overtly sinister, but for the atmosphere that it carried. This heavily, oh my God, let's go back. The place, no. Reputation. Where is it? Lost my place. The place had a reputation. The place had its own reputation, not for anything overtly sinister, but for the atmosphere that it carried. A heavy, stifling energy that made your skin crawl just walking inside. Most of the calls were minor. Fight between kids, medical transports, administrative requests. But every officer knew that whatever went on behind those highly security doors, it wasn't good. Beyond that, every single officer had been here at some point. We had to deliver kids here all the time, and it was always a creep fest. I met up with my partner Jake in the parking lot. He was already leaning against his cruiser, arms crossed, and had that orange glow of a cigarette briefly illuminating his face. "Hawthorne again, huh?" he muttered, flicking ash onto the asphalt. "What's it this time? Another kid throwing some kind of tantrum, stabbing a nurse?" "Disturbance," I replied, grabbing my flashlight from the passenger seat. "Medical's not even here yet, so let's find out." "You know they won't go in there before we do," Jake explained. And he wasn't wrong. There was no sense in waiting. The facility's front doors were locked as always. a keypad next to the door blinking red, awaiting a code. Jake pressed the intercom button, and a muffled voice answered almost immediately. Hawthorne Juvenile, who's calling? DPS, Jake said, flashing his badge at the tiny camera above the keypad. You called us? There was a long pause, then a heavy buzz as the doors unlocked. We stepped inside, the air immediately colder, heavier. The reception area was dimly lit, its lights flickering faintly above us, as though they even wanted to escape. Two night shift workers were waiting for us behind the glass of the office. Their faces were drawn and pale. The younger one, a woman in her 20s with tired eyes, immediately waved us in. Thanks for coming, she said. It's really bad. My partner and I immediately exchanged a look. That's new. Define bad, Jake said. He'd never been good at masking his irritation of this place. He literally hated coming here. The older worker, a man in his 40s with a clipboard, clutched tightly in his hands, immediately stepped forward. The older worker, a man in his 40s with a clipboard, clutched tightly in his hands, stepped forward. There's been an assault, he said. One of the boys, we checked the cameras, but we didn't see anybody enter the building. Situation's definitely growing stranger. I frowned. No one? How's that even possible? That's what we're trying to figure out, the woman said. You'll want to see the footage. Before we could even press for more details, the intercom buzzed again. Medical had now arrived. The workers buzzed them in. We all moved as a group deeper into the facility. Those halls were eerily quiet. The kind of silence that makes you hyper aware of every breath, every footstep you take. The walls around us were painted this sickly pale green, and the faint hum of security cameras followed as we walked. Medical wasn't interested in investigation, only the patient, which we also wanted to see, so we just followed them through the halls. Getting a look at the damage was a perfect place to start with all this mess. They led us to the victim's room. The door was ajar, and inside, the EMTs were crouched over the boy. He couldn't have been any older than 16, but his face was nearly unrecognizable. Swollen, battered, blood crusted around his nose and mouth. He lay limp, his eyes half open but unfocused, his chest rising and falling shallowly. His chest rising and falling shallowly. Shallowly? He lay limp. His chest rising and falling shallowly. I don't know why I can't say that word either. His chest rising and falling shallowly. A total monster had done this. It was unsightly, absolutely gruesome, especially to a kid this young. I couldn't even imagine who we were looking for. What kind of motive could there be? They hadn't even gotten to speak to the kid yet. They'd simply found him in his room like this. And we were the first to start piecing everything together. Jake crouched down, taking a closer look at the kid's wounds. This definitely wasn't self-inflicted, he said. Somebody wanted to kill this kid. The woman nodded, her hands trembling as she hugged herself. We found a pipe in his room. Has he said anything? I asked. She shook her head. He's barely even conscious. The EMTs began stabilizing the boy, their movements efficient but tense and shaky. They were nervously working on him. Jake and I watched everybody in the room. All right, let's see that footage, I said aloud. The workers led us to this cramped office, filled with monitors and stacks on stacks of files. The older man sat at the desk, clicking through the security feed. This is where it gets weird, he said. You're gonna want to take this with a grain of salt. Just show us, Jake said, crossing his arms. The man pulled up a series of clips, starting with the exterior of the building. It was as secure as they claimed it to be. Doors locked, no windows breached, no sign of forced entry. Then when he switched into the interior halls, for several minutes the footage showed nothing but the empty corridors and the occasional flicker of a light. And then a figure appeared. It was a boy, his features indistinct due to the grainy quality of the video. He moved really quickly, slipping in and out of the camera's view, never staying long enough to get a good look. And there's something about the way he moved as well. It was just unsettling. It was these jerky, almost unnatural movements, like a marionette on strings. "Who's that?" I asked, leaning closer. "No idea," the man responded. None of the boys here matched his description, and look, he's avoiding the cameras, like he knows they're there. A final clip showed the boy approaching the victim's door. He paused and glanced down the hall, then produced something from his jacket, a tool of some kind. He jimmied the lock, slipped inside, and disappeared. Seconds later, the footage ended. "That's it," the man said, sitting back. "We've reviewed every angle, and there's no sign of him entering or leaving the building." "What about the victim?" Jake asked. "What's he in here for?" The woman hesitated. He killed a boy about 6 months ago. Brutal attack. Stabbed him to death. We're still waiting to hear if he'll be transferred to a more permanent facility. A knot formed in my stomach. This place felt like Arkham. Everything made you feel crazy. Print us to the boys. Okay. "Print us a still of the boy in the hallway," I said. They printed the clearest image that they could manage, but it was still blurry. The boy's face was pale, his eyes were dark, and he had no expression on his face. It was completely unreadable. We took the photo, returned to the victim's room, where the EMTs were preparing to transport him. I crouched next to the boy, holding up that photo to where he could see it. "You recognize him?" I asked. His reaction was immediate. His face went rigid, his breath quickened, and he turned his head away, curling to himself. "He definitely knows him," Jake said quietly. "Whoever this is, he knows him." The boy did not say another word. He wouldn't even look at us anymore. We searched that facility from top to bottom, every room, every corner. We checked the locks, the windows, the vents, anything that could explain how somebody got in. We found nothing, though. No sign of forced entry, no evidence of an intruder. It was as if the boy in the footage had just materialized out of thin air. The weirdest part was there wasn't any footage of him leaving the room once he entered it, and this room did not have a window. To this day, no one knows where that boy went. Jake, ever the skeptic, shook his head as we left. "Ghost," he said. "Has to be." "Oh, don't start with that shit," I muttered. But his words did stick with me. How else could somebody bypass that kind of security? It made no sense. How else could somebody bypass that kind of security? It didn't make any sense. None of it made sense. In the end, nobody was found, and no one was ever charged. That facility tightened its protocols and installed some better cameras, but it didn't really matter. Whatever happened that night, it left no trace. That boy did recover, and he was transferred to another facility soon after. Personally, I never saw him again. And the figure in the footage, he remained a question without an answer, a shadow in the back of my mind. Even now, all these years later, I can't shake the feeling that we missed something right in front of us that night. Something important and something dangerous. The most likely scenario is that one of the boys had already The most likely scenario is that one of the boys already living inside that facility snuck out of his room, put a smackdown on that new kid. Only a person staying there would know where the cameras are, and all the kids there know how to pick locks. It's the only thing that makes sense, besides Jake and that outlandish ghost theory. All right. Done and done. Tom, thanks for stopping by, bud. I appreciate you. Hope you have a good day. If you're still even here. Do you make money doing this, or is it just one of those hobbies when you're a sober guy who doesn't smoke and drink? Do you make I make money now. I can tell you with 100% certainty that when I started doing this, it was definitely a hobby, and I never thought it would turn into making money. I just talked about doing it for a really long time, and then finally was just like, you know what, I'm gonna try it and see what happens. And that was a little over 3 years ago, and yeah, now I'm doing it for a living. It's wild that I can say that and that I am doing it, but yeah, it definitely started off as a hobby, and I don't even know what little free time I had during that time. I was spending it like I was literally sacrificing sleep and everything just to do this because of how much fun I was having doing it and how much I enjoyed doing it while I was still working at the post office. So, hey, brother, sorry I'm late, but hell, I'm here now, by God. Boosted. What's going on, my guy? Well, here we are now. Hey, yeah. Yeah, these will probably be out on Friday, these stories. And then whenever Zach gets me the Thanksgiving stories, most likely tonight or early tomorrow, I'll Thanksgiving stories will be out tomorrow. What time is it now? Okay, yeah, perfect. All right, y'all. Yeah, I'm gonna hop off here and get these stories edited and get this episode locked and loaded for Friday. And then, depending on how long the stories are and whatever I got going on tomorrow, I will most likely do another live session and read those stories tomorrow as well. So look out again. Look out for this on Friday. Law enforcement stories on Friday. Thanksgiving stories tomorrow. 25% off all my merch right now on my website if you're interested as well. I'm gonna drop that one more time before I head out. And yeah, hope you all have a good day. Thanks for stopping by the stream. And more than likely, I will see you tomorrow, probably around the same time, to do Thanksgiving stories. Yeah. Yes. All right. I appreciate y'all. I hope you have a good day. And talk tomorrow. Sound good? All right.